Tonight, meet the pet dog made to live in a car on a city street for weeks on end by his owners. The neighbours are outraged, so why hasn't the SPCA intervened? Inner city living for dogs. Most of us live in cities. Despite our pastoral image, only 14% of New Zealanders live in rural areas. So when we have pets, they're city pets. Small backyards, apartment living for some, walks before or after their owners go to work. But in Ponsonby, in the heart of Auckland, locals are increasingly concerned about a dog that really does seem to be living in a car. Kim Hurring reports.
This is Tiger. At least that's what the locals call him because they've got to know him, sitting here in this car on this corner for weeks and weeks.
So he eats out of that bag, and for dessert he has hood lining.
Once it was a pretty flash car, but now it's not really much more than a mobile kennel. But it doesn't smell, and there is food and water.
This is a very beautiful animal, and he's not badly looked after in lowercase. He's not in bad condition, but he doesn't deserve to be treated like this any more than a baby should be locked up in a car like this, or a toddler.
Tiger isn't going hungry, but Banks believes he's hungry for something else.
He's not getting enough love and affection. He's cooped up in this car, and it's all wrong.
Neighbouring dog lover and celebrity columnist Bridget Saunders is the one who alerted us to Tiger's plight.
I'm really horrified. I mean, first and foremost, dogs are pack animals, you know. They need company and they need stimulation. I mean, it's not extreme cruelty, and God knows there's plenty of cases of that, but it's a more subtle and really nasty sort of cruelty.
But the SPCA was here just over a week ago. They've checked Tiger out, talked to his owner, and they say it's all okay. Banks and Saunders do not agree.
I think the dog ought to be taken off the guy if that's his idea of caring for it. You know, honestly, what I actually think that this dog, if this is its life, it's probably better off dead.
Tiger is registered. The car he's living in is not, and there are a couple of infringement notices awaiting the mystery owner. Well, we've been here for about an hour and a half now this morning, and there's been absolutely no sign of the owner. Instead, quite a lot of locals have come up to us to say that this dog has been in this car for at least several weeks.
How long has he been here?
For quite a long while. Me and my mum, we've been walking quite a lot, and he's been in here for like weeks.
So we went up to the boarding house where we understand Tiger's owner lives. If there was anyone home, they were not answering.
Now, if this was a child, we'd have the police here open the door with a jemmy.
Later in the afternoon, we went back to find Tiger gone from the car. Obviously, there's someone out there who cares for him, and if he's struggling financially, the Mayor is offering some immediate help.
I'm very happy to provide... Look at this dog licking my hand now. He knows I love him. And I would be very happy to fund this dog's welfare in a kennel until this man's circumstances change.
John Banks talking to Kim Hurring. An inspector from the SPCA visited the dog last week and decided it was being sufficiently well cared for. David Lloyd-Barker is the SPCA's general manager in Auckland. David, life in a car surely is not good enough for a dog.
I would agree. It's not ideal. The ideal would be with the dog running through acres and acres of fields, free running. However, our inspectors, who are all professionals and who come across instances much more severe than this and are obviously dealing with on a day-to-day basis, they're working under a thing called the Animal Welfare Act. And under that act, the animal has to be provided with things like food, water, regular exercise, and the ability to...
So I just want to clarify this. You guys can't act unilaterally. So you can't go in and say, dear me, this isn't good enough. You have to act under the law.
Absolutely.
And the law says, right, let's pick up on one of those things. It has to get regular exercise. How sure are you this dog is getting regular exercise? It seems to be in a car a hell of a lot of the time.
As your report clearly stated, the dog wasn't there when you went back. to our understanding and having spoken to the owner on a number of occasions, this dog is walked between 2 to 4 times a day, which I would suggest is an awful lot more than a lot of the dogs we find who are tied to trees and left out in the all weathers.
So you've spoken to the owner?
Absolutely.
So, well, your inspectors have spoken to the owner. And your inspectors are sure that the owner is caring for this dog as well as he's able?
The dog is in very good conditions. The owner has obviously fallen on hard times. The SPCA in Auckland are certainly not going to get draconian and take away this dog that is being cared for, in our opinion, and take away probably something that the owner loves deeply.
Having said that, it is spending hours a day in the cab of a car. It's not much of a life, is it?
A dog will spend hours in a small space when it's in a kennel, as Mr. Banks has offered very kindly, while its owners are away in Fiji, perhaps. You know, it's no different. It's just the actual kennel just happens to have 4 wheels in this instance.
People want to own dogs, and increasingly we're an urban population. In fact, about 85% of us live in urban areas. Sometimes is it just better that we don't own them if we can't give them the sort of space they might need?
If you can't look after any animal correctly, you shouldn't have one. It's exactly the same as having a child. You know, if you can't care for that entity, then you really shouldn't, or you should think twice about having it.
OK, which brings us back to the dog, because Bridget Saunders, who was out walking her dogs, makes a point that she thinks that whilst this dog is clearly not being mistreated, there is an implicit cruelty at work when you leave a dog day after day after day after day in a car. You don't believe that?
We are governed by the law. We can't overstep that law, unfortunately. You know, that sometimes, you know, the inspectors care deeply about what they do, and sometimes they probably do want to say, I'll just bend the law a little. We can't do that. We are governed by legislation.
In an ideal world, what would happen to this dog?
In an ideal world, the guy would not be in a boarding house. In an ideal world, he would be in a house with a kennel. The dog would be, you know, exercised more than it did already. It sounds like the dog's being exercised extraordinarily well, in my opinion.
David, just as an aside, when times are hard, do we treat our animals less well? Do we feed them less well? Are we working longer hours? Do we spend less time with them? In a recession, do things change?
We're certainly noticing at Auckland. I mean, our prosecution rate is up over 370%. We're finding that some people are getting the message that we have a zero tolerance policy at Auckland, but
so your prosecution are up 370%?
That's correct.
Why?
Because we have a policy now where if people offend against that legislation, the Animal Welfare Act I was mentioning, that we will take them to court.
But at the moment, this dog, or its owner anyway, is not offending against the Animal Welfare Act?
Absolutely not.
David Lloyd-Barker from the SPCA, General Manager in Auckland. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, David.